Your home for life hacks, life lessons, all things positive and building a better you. Hi, I'm your host, Rob Robertson, the host, the owner of My Warrior Ethos Life Coaching. Hope this evening finds you doing well. It's hard to believe it's been a month since last we chatted. Had to take a couple of weeks off there and go visit the wonderful folks up at the Tucson VA to get some stuff done up there. Uh, so I got that taken care of, and unfortunately, I had to take that Tuesday off. But here we are back again to share some time together. I will do my best to get through tonight's show. Battling my back injury one more time for the umpteenth time since 1993, and aggressively seeking some medical treatment for that. I got to go back in for X-rays tomorrow. It turned out that the VA had not had, even though I have a service-connected back injury, the VA had not actually taken any X-rays of my back since 2011, I think they said today when I talked to them. So I'm sure things have probably over time not progressed well back there, and that's probably what's causing a lot of the pain that I'm going through right now. So if I seem like I'm a little bit uncomfortable or a little bit unfocused, please just kind of bear with me. I'm struggling through this as best I can. Missed a couple of days work over it, and right now I'm kind of unfortunately out of the gym, which I used to kind of keep myself focused and on track because I'm not real sure what to do at this point. I'm not sure whether I need to push through the issue, back off the issue, try something different, or what needs to happen here. But at least at this point, I'm kind of in a bit of a quandary. So trying to get back in and see my primary care. I went to the emergency room last week, and they fortunately gave me some pain meds to kind of help deal with it. And so I am better today than I was a week ago, but it's, marginally better. Let's put it that way. The last couple of weeks, the last month in particular, since that fired up, has been a bit challenging. And it reminded me of something that I was always told when I was a kid. This too shall pass. This too shall pass. And thinking about what that means in totality of the fact that no matter how good things are at a particular time in life or how bad things are at a particular time in life, those things will always pass one way or another. We know that the good times and bad times tend to be cyclical in our life, and the one doesn't last in many cases or more than another. Just our perception of things is different. The good times don't seem to last as long as they should, and the bad times seem like they tend to go on forever. And it's tough sometimes to tell the difference between the two, which one's lasting longer. But where does that, I was doing some reading, trying to find out where that came from, where that original statement came from. And it actually came from an Eastern king who asked his wisest philosophers to provide him with a sentence that would be not just true in each and every situation, but always worth hearing too. And they presented him with these words. And I think, although it has been around for a long time, where I ran across it and reading about this time, there's a thing I go to. I get an email every day, my personal email, call from the website called the Daily Stoic. And if you get a chance, you should subscribe to this email. It gives you some thoughts from antiquity about these philosophies and everything that you can apply to current everyday life. Really great resource, the Daily Stoic. And the one who really brought this up again was Abraham Lincoln. And it was a concept that he had as he began his presidency. And you wonder if he knew what he was going to go through at that time as he was on his way to Washington, D.C. To take his first inaugural, make his first inaugural address and being sworn in for the first time. If he had any inkling about what was about to happen to him, that he would see the Union divided, that he would witness almost 750,000 Americans killed during that time. We don't really truly know what the actual number was. It's just a best guess between the civilian deaths and the military deaths. The number they've come up with is 750,000. And anyway, Lincoln goes to give this speech at the Wisconsin State Fair, and he brings up this thing about this too shall pass. And this is a core teaching of Buddhist philosophy, that this too shall pass. That no matter how bad it is, that eventually it will go by the wayside, and you will have different things. And I know this from personal experience, that I've been down this road before. I mean, at least within the last 13 years, I had about 8 years there that were just not good. My health, I couldn't seem to get it under control. Personally, I couldn't seem to get anything under control. Professionally, everything seemed like it was kind of scattershot. And then about 5 years ago, started to turn things around with some new personal philosophies and studying extreme ownership by Jocko Willink and Leif Babin, a couple of guys that wrote a book called Extreme Ownership. Again, that's another one of the things that I highly recommend if you get a chance to read that book. But I got back into school, got my master's degree, went back to work at Barnett's. That's worked out really great for me. So, I had about 8 years there of bad times. I've had about 5 years of good times, and now I'm kind of struggling with this back thing and not real sure which direction it's going to go. But, no matter how bad the back bothers me right now, I know that this too shall pass, and it'll move on. And, I'll be involved with something else. So I'm not, in times past, whenever my back would fire up and it would be a problem, I would become very depressed over it and become very frustrated. And this time it doesn't seem like I'm really struggling as much with that as I have in times past, because in my mind I'm already thinking, well, sooner or later it's going to right itself. It's just a matter of figuring out what the right combination of medications and physical therapy and other treatments to get it back on track again. So I'm not as beat up about it as I have been, again, in times past over it. When I hurt my back when I was in the service initially, I had about a year there that things were really rough, and I came out of that year and ended up getting promoted. And then my last 16, 17 months on board were actually pretty good, working in the shipyard, although it was a lot of work and it was a lot of long hours and a lot of long days. But again, cycles. You go through good times and you go through bad times. Marcus Aurelius, who was a very famous Stoic philosopher from Rome, the Roman Empire, ended up being Roman emperor, also wrote about this, and he's considered the father of Stoicism. Said to keep in mind how fast things pass by and are gone, those that are now and those that are to come. The events of the world, good and bad, beautiful or tragic or terrifying, flow past us quickly. None of them are stable. And I know many of you have always heard that statement, before the only constant is change. And that's true of no matter what you're involved in. There's good change and there's bad change, obviously. Sometimes with bad change, we have to deal with death in our lives. We lose loved ones, we lose friends. But again, those times pass. We make new friends. And new loved ones are even born. Other members of our family have kids, and the family's in constant growth. I mean, most families don't stay the same. The older folks die off, and newer folks are born, and those things continue on, irregardless of how we feel about them. So again, the good times, don't last forever, and the bad times don't last forever either. To steal a phrase from a Billy Joel song, the good old days weren't always that good, and the bad times aren't as bad as they seem. And sometimes it's tough to look at it from either perspective whenever you're going through it, particularly the bad times. Like last week when my back was at its worst, last Wednesday, I mean that whole day just seemed like it just lasted forever. Even with pain meds on board, it wasn't getting any better. It just seemed like every minute was a day, trying to get around it. But then the weekend prior to that, I was at the UFO conference here, and I'm big into UFOs and trying to understand whether or not there's extraterrestrial life. I know it's an entirely different subject, but I went to the UFO conference here in town, had a great time. The day just shot by like that because I was having so much fun. And, so two different dichotomies. The days are essentially the same amount. They're both 24 hours, but the day I was in pain seemed like it lasted a week, and the day that I was at the UFO conference only seemed like it lasted an hour. So, those perceptions on those things can be quite different. So it's important to try to keep everything in perspective when you're dealing with both of those. Enjoy the good times while they're around, and try not to dwell on the bad times when you're going through them. And realize that there will be a better day. You just got to give it time to get there, and sometimes it's going to be a struggle to get there. And one of the things you can do is particularly when it comes to bad times, I think, is you look back and say, well, how did I get out of this the last time? Or what experiences do I have that I can fall back on to help myself mitigate the damage that maybe it's doing to me? So it doesn't seem, quite as onerous on yourself. And that can be a struggle to go back and try to figure out, especially when you're in pain or you're hurting or you're going through really bad times, because sometimes during those particular things in life, we don't, our decision-making processes or our processes that we use to analyze things may not be working quite as well as what they would under normal circumstances. So you kind of got to take that step back, take a deep breath, as I like to say, and figure out what's going on. I remember, I don't know how many of you have seen the movie Apollo 13, where they had the disaster with that space program, that space launch, and they were trying to get their way back home, and there comes a scene where they're starting to get kind of aggravated and frustrated, and Tom Hanks's character Jim Lowell puts the whole thing in perspective about them getting home, because they're having a hard time getting the spacecraft from space back to Earth, and they're going through all these things, and they're trying to figure out what to do, and the task just seems monumental to get them home. And he puts it in perspective because he tells the other two astronauts with him, he says, there's 1,000 things we got to do to get home. Right now we're on number 6. And that can be a very good way to look at things, is, to break it down into its smallest parts, so it's easier for you to digest. And so you look at the overall, you look at things, sometimes it seems like, wow, man, this whole process of what I need to get through seems like it's the size of Mount Everest. But the important thing is to get to that first base camp, right? Is you don't want to try to climb the mountain all in one day. All you want to do is get to a waypoint, so you got a chance to kind of figure out where you're going, how you're going to get there, the processes you're going to use, and it gives you a chance to kind of analyze what is working and what's not working, so you can figure out what you want to focus on and put your energy in that direction and not waste time on things that are not working. So, no matter how big the task is, good or bad, is trying to keep it, again, I'm going to cycle back to this several times. You got to keep it into perspective, folks. You got to look at it and say, okay, whether it's good or bad, I'm not going to let my emotions rule me over, which direction this is going, because we can even create things and make them worse if the situation is, like with my back in particular, yeah, the pain's bad enough, but if I let the depression get in, well, now I've just exacerbated that problem. Same thing if I'm going through something good, if I get overconfident on something, or I may overcompensate on something, assuming that I'm in a better position maybe than I really am. I have to be grounded in both scenarios, whether good or bad, to make sure that I'm not making bad decisions or making bad choices that, would either make one worse or take the other one, and maybe, if it's a good situation, maybe turn it into a negative just because I'm overcompensating or thinking things are better than what they really are. Marcus Aurelius continued to write, it would take an idiot to feel distress or arrogance or anger. Just wait a second whether you're being elevated to the highest office in the land or sucked into the awful carnage of a civil war. This too shall pass and everything will take care of itself. It's, again, like I said, you have to keep it all in perspective and keep it all kind of in front of you. And yeah, I remember back, sitting here thinking about it just now. I remember back when I was going through the rites of Christian initiation for the Catholic Church, and somebody asked me why I wasn't more, demonstrative of my emotions about it. And I said, well, I'm just trying to keep it all in perspective. You're giving me a lot of information. I know what's going on inside of me personally, and I know how I feel about things, but I don't want to rush the process either. I'm trying to enjoy it as much as I can. If I push it too much, I feel like I'll, kind of lose the emotion and the feeling that I do have about it, as opposed to, rushing through it, and the next thing I know, it's gone, and I didn't get a chance to enjoy the process. So again, no matter what that situation is, you want to make sure that you're taking time to understand what's happening, and trying to keep all things in perspective on it. Good or bad, don't let either situation, you need to be the master of the situation, no matter what it is. I remember back when I took my, as I've told you guys numerous times, was a martial arts student for close to 30 years before my back kind of gave up the ghost on me. It's not real easy for me to get out on a dojo floor and perform anymore like I used to back in those days. But I remember taking my brown belt exam. I took my brown belt exam. I also took my brown belt exam with a cast on my right arm because it was broken. So I had the problem of trying to deal with the broken arm while getting ready for that exam, both at the same time. And the problem that I had was the more that I sweat, the more the cast would become soft. And so I had to mitigate, one against the other. So yeah, I was enjoying the process of going through getting ready for the test, but at the same time, I had to deal with the fact that that the arm was broken. So as bad as that would seem, it was not so bad that I couldn't perform, but at the same time, it wasn't so good that I could give 110% of what I wanted to give. So I had to kind of mitigate one against the other in order to get it to come out properly. So the one thing is don't let your pride get the better end of you at the end whenever things are going exceedingly well. But also don't let the affliction wear you out so bad that you can't move forward either. You're going to deal with a lot of situations, like I said, going forward. You're going to have deaths around you. You're going to lose jobs. You're going to have car problems. Take any given Monday, for example. You get up in the morning and your alarm clock doesn't go off. You go out there and the coffee maker didn't kick on. You go out to start the car, the battery's dead. You get to work and find out there's some major forest fire that you got to put out when you get to work. And spend all day on that, and all of a sudden you're what they say about having a case of the Mondays. You got a Monday that's maybe you've been at work for 8 hours, but it's 10 o'clock in the morning. You already feel like you've been there for 16. But the day will pass, and tomorrow will just be another set of tasks you have to complete, and probably not quite as bad. And then whenever you get done with everything, you're probably going to look back on it and go, well, was really the coffee pot not firing this morning, was that really as tragedy as in my mind I made it out to be, or it was just a matter of all the other little things going wrong. Same thing, like I said, with sorry about that. I need to turn my volume down here real quick. With the good times, and you get out with friends or family and you go do something that you really enjoy, and start off at 9-10 o'clock in the morning, and before you turn around at 6 or 7 o'clock, you're like, where did the day go? Ends up being the same amount of time. It's just your perspective affects how you perceive it. So again, just remember, whatever it is, this too shall pass. Yeah, something else. So let's talk a little bit about, it's going to be my second topic today. I had to come up with two because really neither one are really that long. So we're going through particularly difficult times in our life. it is easy to become overwhelmed by things. We become overwhelmed by things at home. We become overwhelmed by things at work, and our personal relationships. Sometimes you get medical information that's not good. We get, you're working in school and you studied all week for this test and you go to take it, and it ends up maybe being everything but what you studied for, and you walk out with a C or a D, because the part you focused on didn't end up being what the test was about. Just a variety of things that we all go through. And over time, they can wear you down. So it becomes important to know when to kind of disconnect and when to kind of pull back. And my wife and I were about a month or so ago, we're over driving in New Mexico. We took a drive on the other side of the Chiricahuas, and got over there, and there was no cell phone service. And my wife just happened to mention that, sometimes it's important to be able to disconnect from everything. And, sometimes we don't think about how important that is to pull ourselves out of the normal day-to-day routine of things, to give our batteries a chance to recharge. I'm a big fan of routine. I like kind of knowing what's going to happen from day to day, what's required of me or what's expected of me, and getting those things taken care of. But, at the same time, it can become monotonous, and it can also wear you down. Just constant news, whether good or bad, can be overwhelming over time. Just a little bit back to the previous topic, they talk about eustress and de-stress, where eustress is good stressors, when you're out doing things that you really enjoy, but it still puts some stress on your system. Distress is whenever you go out and have things happen to you that you don't enjoy, but both of them can be taxing on your system. And it's important to know when to draw back and when to disconnect a little bit from everything you have going on and everything that you're going through in your life, and maybe just shut that cell phone off for a little while, turn off the news, and just get away from everything. And unfortunately, because of the cell phones and the social media and everything, all the different delivery methods now, it is tough to get away from it all, because you basically, things come in 24/7. The world never sleeps now, and it can be stressful to navigate all this stuff and know what to do with it. There comes a point where you have so much news and so much information that comes in. Is what do you do with all of it? How do you process all of it? How do you prioritize all of it, so that way you're able to what's the word I'm looking for? Devour all of it or consume all of it, so that way it doesn't overwhelm you. It can be very difficult. And it's important to do that, because it does. The better you are able to take in information and process it, the less stress you're going to put on yourself. One study from Kansas State University found that disconnecting from work is crucial for the brain to function well. If you have high levels of emotional stress, high levels of physical stress, high levels of psychological stress, the less you're able to perform. Because over time, no matter how much it is, the more stress you put on yourself, the less the ability is to physically perform, to mentally perform. So it's important to be able to take that step back, and that can affect you not only at work but at home. If you're having a lot of stress in your everyday life, it's going to eventually you're going to start suffering from burnout. What does that lead to? Well, it leads to health problems, which can be both psychological and physical. There's a reason why they, disease, like dis-ease, there's a reason why they call it that. And some of it does come from this kind of thing. And they found that the people that do not have that capability to disconnect from the actual world suffer from higher levels of burnout and higher levels of medical issues, and fatigue and burnout. So that's where this all comes from. You want to make sure that one of the biggest reasons I think to disconnect is to be able to improve relationships with people. So if you have that constant, you're constantly focused on work or constantly focused on school or constantly focused on whatever, in one particular area, no matter what it is, it can affect your relationships with other people because you're so tuned into that one particular discipline that you shut everything else out. And if you don't find a way to disconnect from it, it can be real. It can be a real problem. And so you need to set. You've heard me talk about this before about setting good boundaries on all those things, because you got to have a place where you say, okay, well, this is as much as I'm going to do today, and that's where I'm going to stop. And I really, for myself, I kind of did that when I was working on my master's degree. Is I think one of the things that allowed me to get through it as easily as I did for 2 years was I've really set myself up some boundaries. I'm only going to work to this point today. This right here is going to be my stopping point. And what I would do on Mondays in particular, whenever the new assignment, because we would do an assignment for a week. It would run from from Monday to Sunday, and then the new assignment would drop Sunday night at midnight. So Monday morning, I would get a chance to take a quick look at it, and then Monday night, whenever I would get off from work, one of the first things I would do is organize what I wanted to get done for that week. And in many cases, what made it nice was I was able to kind of see the work that was required of me for the week. So I would take and I would break it down into parts. So on Monday I want to do this. On Tuesday I want to do this. On Wednesday I want to do this. So it never quite overwhelmed me for the time that I was working on it. And I think you have to be able to do that with everything. And you have to be able to do that too, I think, in many ways with the good things that you're working on. Relationships. People say, well, you don't want to plan so much that you don't enjoy it. Well, that's true. I think that's a very true statement about you have to be very careful about how far you plan things. But at the same time, you got to have some kind of idea on what you want to, what your goal is out of the good times sometimes. And that's not to say you can't just go to a family picnic or something like that and just kick back and have a couple of drinks and eat some good food and just listen to some music. And obviously you're not going to plan that to its nth degree. But at the same time, if you've got other things to do, you might want to say, okay, well, I'm going to limit myself to being at this event for X number of hours because I know I have other things to do. There's nothing wrong with that. That's being responsible. And so it keeps you from putting yourself in a position where you put yourself in a time crunch for other things that you need to do. And I've gotten up and left, social events, particularly I was working on my master's because I had stuff to do. And not because I necessarily wanted to give up on the social event, was just because, I knew I had schoolwork that needed to get done. And I knew all I was going to do was create stress on myself if I impinged on that time as well. So you still have to kind of to plan things out and look at how things are going to work and make sure that you're building in time to spend time with the people that you want to spend time with, both in your personal relationships and in your work relationships. Because if that other person feels like you're not being communicative with them, no matter whether it's at work or whether it's at home, it's going to create a problem ultimately. If you're burned out because of fatigue and because you're not spending the proper time to get the proper rest and everything, obviously your work's going to suffer. And my saying is, if you feel like crap, you're going to perform like crap. You just can't get around it. And if you're burned out because you're so focused at work that you're letting everything else go, if by the time you get off from work, all you can do is go home and hit the couch and sit there like a vegetable because you can't hold a good conversation with anybody, it's probably not going to end well for you. Now, that's not to say that you're not going to have some tough days at work. Those things happen, and you're going to have those days where you come home and you're just not going to feel like having a big, long discussion with your significant other, with the kids or whatever. Those days are going to happen. You're going to have bad days no matter what. But if you're having bad weeks and you're having bad months, that's something you need to kind of focus in on and say, maybe I need to take a look at what I'm doing here, how I'm approaching this, and how I'm organizing my time or how I'm attacking different tasks to see if there's a better way to do this so you're not burning yourself up. So as I say, it may seem a little counterintuitive, that if you're burned out at work, things aren't going to work out well. But if you can it's good to be able to multitask, but you can't over multitask. You can put so much stress on yourself trying to get things done that the main task that you originally intended to go after just gets goes by the wayside. Some have, according to a study by the University of Maryland, some people have talked about this with this interconnected world we have now. If they're not around their email and they're not connected to social media, that they actually go through something similar to withdrawals. And I think I've suffered from that too. I have a big want for news. I stay kind of with my ear to the ground when it comes to the day in day out news of the day, and I think I kind of understand that mentality or that thought process of feeling like that you're missing out on the news. Some of that is political news, some of that's just day-to-day news, whatever the case may be. Local news, whenever you don't feel like you're connected to anything and you're not up to the latest and greatest on any given moment. I listen to a lot of podcasts. Good God, I probably listen to 2 or 3 different podcasts a day now, just trying to keep up with everything that's going on. And I think some of us, whenever something happens, we tend to be a little feel a little disjointed whenever something happens and we're not up to date on the latest news, or somebody goes, "Did you hear about it?" And we're like, oh, "No, I didn't." I had that happen yesterday with I was talking to my boss and he's like, "Well, I'm sure you're up to date on this." So I was like, "Oh, what? What are you talking about?" Next thing I knew, I was kind of like, it was a topic he and I had both been keeping up with for several months, and when the story actually broke, it had just broken, but I wasn't up to speed on it, and I know I kind of felt a little out of the loop for a second. But people also feel like that at work too, that they feel left out whenever they're not getting all the information. They're away from their work email from the day, or they're away from their work phone for the day. That they feel like they're behind the power curve on what's going on at work. That they suffer from withdrawals from that. And believe it or not, they say this University of Maryland study says it actually keeps can actually increase people's anger. They really get angry and frustrated and aggravated because they just don't know what's going on out there, and even at their workspace. And of course, to me, anger is like the worst thing you could possibly have to battle through. His anger leads to frustration, or vice versa. I think frustration can lead to anger, and then that just exacerbates the burned out feeling that you have, because now just, you start seeing shadows where none exist. And anger, frustration, depression, all of it, plays a role in together. And it all starts with all this technology and everything. And again, you gotta find, healthy balance on it. Which brings us to our last point on this, finding that work-life balance. Regularly disconnecting from work decreases stress, improves relationship, increases the quality of your work, and maintains emotional health. It may seem like it's difficult to set that stuff down, but you have to do it. And I would even go so far as to say you even need to get away from all your electronics for a while. Maybe even sitting down watching a movie is probably maybe not even a good idea. There's a song by Alan Jackson where he says what we need is some more good front porch sitting. And I think maybe we've gotten away from that. Sitting on the front porch and telling each other stories, telling each other tall tales, and The other day at work, something came up about my military experiences, and I was telling this guy I work with about all the different funny stories suddenly that I can remember, and I was just rattling them off one right after another, and I got myself into a relaxed state while I was doing it, because even though I was at work, it was a moment I was disconnected from the electronics and everything else for a moment, and just kind of having some fun. So it's important to set time away from those electronics, to set yourself up to be away from that stuff, um, to spend time with family, to spend time with friends, heck, even to spend time with yourself. I think sometimes we forget about putting in time for just plain old self-care. I mean, it's not a perfect or ideal situation. Like I was telling you guys about going to the gym. For me, it's a little bit more than the physical therapy aspect of it. I turn on my music, I just do the exercise machines, and I just kind of disconnect from everything. And yeah, the phone is an electronic device that I'm using to listen to my music. I get it. But the music gives me a chance to kind of to disconnect from everything. And so that's just one of the tools that I use. And when I come here to Warrior Healing Center, I come on Saturdays for the group sessions then. And one of the things we always talk about in there is we all have different tools we use to maintain our positivity and to keep ourselves away from that breaking point. That's just one of mine. Now, is that going to work for you? Well, I can't guarantee it, but I would be willing to bet you. And I just read a study. It's been popping up on Facebook, and I wish I would have taken time to print it off. But now they're saying even just a 15-minute walk in the morning can improve your mood and improve your psychological well-being by 100% or whatever the percentage was. It was a large percent. So if you just get out there and do something simple as taking that 15-minute walk, I'm not asking you to go move 100-pound weights or anything like that. Just get out and walk for 15 minutes, first thing in the morning, and breathe some fresh air. The effect on you can be quite momentous. It can make you feel better, for the day, get you off on a positive foot instead of a negative one. You got to be able to do those things. You got to know when to cut it off. So, sitting around kind of planning your day is not the worst thing you can do. I mean, I find myself doing that more and more as I get older with my work day. I've got a specific time in the morning now that I've gone back to doing my emails. And unless I see one that comes in that's just absolutely pressing, I don't touch email again, until the next business day. That doesn't mean I don't look at them, real quick to see if it's something I need to respond to today. If it's not something pressing, I just leave it till tomorrow. So I don't stress myself out trying to get that email done. Plus, I've got other work that I've already planned for today to get it accomplished. Now, the thing I'm trying to avoid here is, putting myself in a position to just create more stress for myself. So there's all kinds of things you can do, to kind of keep that stress level down and keep yourself from getting burned out and suffering from, physical ailments and mental ailments. I mean, I may get into doing some research on this back issue as we, excuse me, as I get some x-rays and stuff done and find out that, my own stress level is what's causing the back problem. Excuse me, I always seem to get into this right towards the end of the show. So anyway, that's really all I have on that. Just remember that, like I said to begin with the first topic, no matter how bad things or how good things are, that'll pass. And, make sure you're not burning yourself out, trying to take care of your own personal business, or business at work, or business at home, or business wherever. Turn it off for a little while. Get some rest. Spend some time with yourself. Spend some time with your family. Spend some time with your friends. I want to thank Warrior Healing Center for letting me come in every couple of weeks and do this show. You could say I do it for the audience, but for a lot of times I do it for myself, just so I can hear myself talk and go through some of the ideas and thoughts I've had in my head for the last couple of weeks. So I appreciate everybody coming along with me on this journey, and I want you guys to know I look forward to it every couple of weeks. I want to point out some things that happen here. Warrior Healing Center that can be of help to you. They have some folks here that do some financial planning. Get a call down in here, stop by, get checked in. Talk to them about that. Some will planning. This is, for end of life things, or just whenever you feel like you could be incapacitated. A lot of stuff here to deal with veterans benefits that you can come down and get. All kinds of information is going to help you out. Warrior Healing Center is the place to come. Stop in up here at the front desk Monday through Friday. I think it's 8:30 to 4, and they'll help you out. Nothing else, hit that phone number that's there at the bottom, and get in here and get yourself on the right path to getting the benefits that you deserve and that you earned as a veteran. Okay, so get that done. Okay, so that's all I have for this 2-week period. Our next one will not be until the first Tuesday of next month. This month is done because I only do it on the 1st and 3rd, and coming up on the next one would be coming out of a holiday, so I don't want to do it then. So the very next meeting will be, hold on here, let me get to my calendar. And don't ever afraid to reach out to me as well. If you got something you want to hear me talk about, get a hold of the folks down here. Say, hey, tell Rob we want to hear about this topic, and I'll do my best to do some research and find out about it. I love doing the research part of this. Or get a hold of me at mywarriorethosaz@gmail.com. mywarriorethosaz@gmail.com. So my next broadcast will be Tuesday, the 6th of June. That will be D-Day for those of you that are historically savvy. And maybe I'll talk a little bit about that, just to do something different. Maybe we'll come have a little bit of a history lesson the next time. So anyway, until next time, dream big, dare to fail, because fortune always favors the bold. Y'all take care now. Have a good evening. We'll catch you next time.